Hello, everybody. Welcome to the last week of class, and we have saved one of the best for last by talking about human security today. Really, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the complexity of systems. So what we've done this entire semester is we've talked about, again, not that it hasn't been complex up till now, but we've been sort of very much simplifying things down. So think of the world through the realism eyes or the liberalism eyes. Think about things in terms of sort of cause and effect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine this with another sort of system, another theory, which is called systems theory. Now we're not going to do that sort of officially here. This is an intro class. That's way too complex. But that is really what we're going to be talking about. Is we're going to talk about the complexity of these things. That if you do this thing, do you know all of the things that are going to happen as a result? So when we talk about this in terms of like scope and methods, we say X causes Y. So if I want more Y, I need more X, that kind of thing. That's great. And that simplifies things down. You could demonstrate this connection between providing more X provides more Y. That's good stuff. But what we're going to be talking about today is if I provide more X, I get more Y, but I also get more Z and more G and more F, or a little bit less H, or less, and whatever these things are here, that essentially these things don't act in a vacuum. It's a very complex systemic thing. So we want to think about today about some of the ways the things that we're trying to do are interconnected with other things, and how we have to understand like the complexity, the various systems that are interacting with each other. I know I'm not doing a great job of explaining this, but maybe you'll see by the time we get to the end of this. So the way we talk about this today is this idea called human security. This is a relatively new term in international relations. If we were doing this class maybe 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, there wouldn't be a chapter on human security. This is a relatively new idea that tries to capture a few things that we think are really important that weren't captured by what we've talked about so far. So let's get after this. If we talk about state security, if I talk about national security, we usually mean a couple things. We mean survival, right? The state is interested in survival, whether you're a realist, liberal, whatever. The state wants to survive. And then maintain the status quo. Think in terms of like the coronavirus, right? It will do what it can to try to avoid something like the coronavirus. It wants the status quo. It doesn't want to lose power, that kind of thing. So these are kind of the main things that state security essentially means. So when we say human security, what do we mean? And that is security of people. And we can think about this in two ways. The UN kind of bounces back and forth on what they mean by this. On the one hand, they mean human security, like the security of humanity moving forward. On the other hand, they mean human security in sort of the liberal version, which is each individual human is secure. So what do we mean here when we say security? I get it when I'm talking about a state, right? We're talking about, these things here: survival, maintaining status quo. So if a person is just surviving, is that enough? That's usually not what we mean by human security. So I want you to think about yourself. And if I said to you, are you secure right now? What things would you think of that would be that? So one of the first things, like this was one of the big calls that people made, like right after the coronavirus. The university wanted to contact you guys and say, hey, are you guys doing okay? And this is one of those questions about security. Like, are you doing okay? And so one of the security ideas is like physical safety. Like, I'm not in danger right now of being harmed or killed. Something we don't honestly, at least in the United States, deal with that much. There's just this sense in which, for the most part, I'm just not that nervous walking down the street that there's some physical safety issues. Okay, that's one element of it. Another element of human security is going to be economic and social well-being. So, for example, after the coronavirus hits, you may be home safe, but you or your parents may have lost their job, and now you don't feel quite as economically secure as you did before. Not that you couldn't sort of, get another job later on or things like that, but for right now, there's this insecurity that goes with that. Social well-being as well. And then we would add one more element to it, and that's protection of human rights and dignity. That would also be an element of these things. So if all these three things are, for lack of a better term, we don't want to say perfect, we want to say pretty good, then there's a sense in which you have human security. And most of us, most of the time, at least in the United States, have this. And one of the conditions that we sort of know in a lot of poorer countries is that many people, most of the time, don't have any or all of those things. And that's sort of what we're talking about here. So the old version, when we talked about this with poverty, we talked about, okay, here's the line, $2 a day. Does somebody live above or below this? This is going to be global poverty, abject poverty. How do we get people above that line? Those were going to be the Millennium Development Goals. How do we get people living above $2 a day? We're shifting now to something called Sustainable Development Goals, which doesn't use this model here, but uses this model. Essentially says, and I don't know what the line is here, but in terms of physical safety, economic, social well-being, and protection of human rights, that there's some minimum level that we want everyone to be above. Are they above that yet? So it's kind of shifted. Again, we've kind of done this, and so now there's a shift towards this. All right, and that's human security. Again, I don't think there's anything on here you would say that's not important for somebody. I think that you would agree with that's the case. Another way to sort of phrase this, sort of the bumper sticker of this, is freedom from care or freedom from anxiety. It doesn't mean sort of in the sense of I'm nervous about that test anxiety, but in the sense that most of you guys don't wake up and go, you know what? I don't know where I'm going to eat today. I don't know where I'm going to live today. I don't know how I'm going to get by today. I mean, imagine if you were homeless, right? Think about how the different things that you would be worried about, anxious about during the day are than you living sort of in your home. All right, so we're going to talk about this, and the first place we're going to start with scarcity. So you're going to watch some things about water scarcity and the Grand Renaissance Dam.